In recent years, the push for artificial meat has become a major global trend. From lab-grown steaks to plant-based burgers engineered to mimic real meat, corporations and governments alike are heavily investing in the future of synthetic food. On the surface, the idea seems beneficial, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, conserving land and water, and providing a cruelty-free alternative to animal farming. However, beneath this movement lies a deeper conspiracy, one that suggests artificial meat isn't just about sustainability, but about control over food supply, human health, and even population numbers. Proponents of the artificial meat movement argue that it will help combat climate change, but skeptics believe that it's part of a much larger agenda, one that removes independent food production from the hands of farmers and places it under the authority of multinational corporations and powerful elites. Could the push for lab-grown and synthetic food be an attempt to centralize food production, manipulate human biology, and ultimately create a population more dependent on corporate-controlled food systems? The corporate takeover of the food industry. For centuries, humans have relied on natural food sources: hunting, fishing, farming, and gathering. Food was a product of the land, freely available to those who worked for it. But in the modern age, food production has become increasingly industrialized, controlled by a handful of corporations. Companies like Monsanto, now Bayer, Cargill, and Tyson Foods have long dominated the agricultural sector, but with the rise of synthetic foods, a new player has entered the game: Big Tech. Companies like Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, and Eat Just, all backed by billionaires like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Richard Branson, are leading the push for artificial meat. Gates, in particular, has publicly stated that wealthy nations should completely switch to synthetic beef to combat climate change. But why are tech moguls, rather than traditional food producers, so invested in lab-grown meat? One possibility is patent control. Unlike traditional livestock farming, artificial meat is intellectual property, something that can be patented, licensed, and monopolized. If food becomes a product of laboratories rather than nature, then whoever controls the patents will control the food supply. Independent farmers would become obsolete, replaced by a world where people are forced to consume corporate-owned, genetically engineered food. Could the goal be to make all natural meat obsolete and create a population entirely dependent on synthetic alternatives? What's really inside artificial meat? While plant-based meat substitutes like Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods are already on the market, the more advanced version, lab-grown meat, is still in development. Unlike plant-based alternatives, lab-grown meat is produced using animal cells that are cultured in bioreactors, allowing muscle tissue to grow without the need for a living animal. This process requires a growth medium to feed the cells, and this is where things become concerning. Some of the key ingredients used in artificial meat production include fetal bovine serum, FBS, a growth medium derived from cow fetuses, raising ethical and moral concerns. Genetically modified yeast and bacteria, engineered microbes that help create texture and flavor but could have unknown long-term effects on human health. Synthetic growth hormones and antibiotics, used to accelerate muscle growth in lab conditions, compounds that, in natural meat, are often criticized for causing health issues. Critics argue that these lab-grown foods could lead to unforeseen health consequences, including altered gut microbiomes, increased risks of autoimmune disorders, hormonal imbalances, reduced fertility. If artificial meat becomes the norm and traditional meat is phased out, could we be unknowingly consuming synthetic compounds designed to weaken our biology? The end of natural farming? One of the biggest concerns surrounding the artificial meat agenda is its impact on traditional agriculture. Governments around the world are cracking down on independent farmers, citing climate concerns as the reason for banning livestock farming in some regions. The Netherlands, the Dutch government has ordered thousands of farms to shut down to meet EU climate regulations. Ireland, farmers are being offered money to cull cows in an effort to reduce methane emissions. United States, Proposals for taxing or limiting meat consumption have been discussed at the highest levels. If global leaders are actively reducing natural meat production, what happens when the only alternative is corporate-controlled synthetic food? The answer is total dependency, a world where people cannot access real food without permission from corporate and government entities. Some believe this push is part of a broader agenda known as the Great Reset, a World Economic Forum-backed initiative that envisions a centralized, government-controlled world economy where traditional ownership of land, food, and resources is eliminated. In this future, real food might become a luxury only available to the elite, while the general population is forced to consume lab-grown, patented, and potentially modified synthetic food sources. The connection to population control. Beyond corporate greed and control, there is a darker theory behind the push for synthetic food: population control. Some researchers argue that the ingredients and processes used in artificial meat could be designed to lower fertility rates, weaken immune systems, and even subtly alter human behavior. How could synthetic food be weaponized? Hormonal disruptors. Artificial meat could contain compounds that reduce testosterone levels, leading to lower fertility rates. Nanotechnology in food. Some theories suggest nanoparticles could be introduced into lab-grown food to deliver drugs or behavior-modifying chemicals. Biometric tracking through diet. With artificial food linked to blockchain technology, governments could track and control individual food consumption. If artificial meat is combined with biometric identification systems, then food could become a tool for enforcing social control, limiting what people can eat based on their carbon footprint, vaccination status, or government approval. Conclusion: a future without choice? The push for lab-grown and synthetic food is often marketed as a solution to climate change, food shortages, and ethical concerns. However, beneath the surface lies a web of corporate control, potential health risks, and a future where real food could become a privilege rather than a right. Will traditional farming be outlawed? Will natural meat be replaced entirely by synthetic alternatives? And will we have a choice in what we eat, or will the decision be made for us? These questions remain unanswered, but one thing is clear: the future of food is rapidly changing, and those in power stand to gain the most. The real question is, will the rest of us be left with nothing but synthetic scraps? Please remember to like, share and subscribe for more. Stay informed.